Hey everyone, Sky here to discuss Shallow Grave, starring Kerry Fox, Christopher Eccleston, Ewan McGregor, and Keith Allen, and directed by Danny Boyle. Now, why am I doing Danny Boyle? Well, he makes a lot of interesting movies, and why am I leading up to this yesterday that's coming out that's about the Beatles, like, not existing in London or something? Well, I'm not a fan of musicals, but this one looks pretty good. Even for a musical, I'm just gonna straight up say it. But let's get into this movie because I want to start off with Danny Boyle's biography or resume of movies. The movie starts with David Stevens, played by Christopher Eccleston, who I reviewed before in, and I will review him again in this movie later on in the retrospective. And his two roommates, Alex Law, played by Ewan McGregor, and Juliet Miller, played by Kerry Fox, interviewing people for another roommate. And I like the music choices and the three main characters so far. And it's well shot. I really enjoy Danny Boyle's choices of actors versus musical moments. It suits him very well. Juliet interviews a new author named Hugo, played by Keith Allen, all alone, and she asks him to pick up the telephone, and that's a character we don't get to know very well because he dies a little later in the film, so he didn't really work for me very well. They give him the room anyways without realizing two things. One, he kills people, and two, he kills himself a few minutes later, and then before the point one, he takes their money. Or should I say after, excuse me very much. So that's number 3. Wait, what you got right there? And they find his money and steal it and plans on burying Hugo. And I thought, they're in so much fucking trouble. I don't even know if I want them to get away with it or not. Because they're not too caring, despite I like these characters. But they're kind of despicable people, in my opinion. That may be my biggest problem throughout this movie. They bury Hugo in the middle of the woods, and David is scared to be involved, but is involved and cuts parts of Hugo's body parts and doesn't feel good about it and tries to tell Julia and Alex, but they're both selfish to the point that David hides the money in the attic where nobody will find it, even his roommates. Then Alex pushes Hugo's car in the water, and I'm enjoying all of this, but what I don't like is the fundraiser scene because Alex becomes totally a prick asshole, and some robbers trying to find their money because they're killing people who don't know where the money is unnecessarily. Then Cameron, who they interviewed earlier in the film, beats up Alex and kind of lightened the movie up a bit for me, but not by much. Alex and Juliet watch some home movies, and Alex unnecessarily wears makeup, and while they're watching home movies, I thought, what the fuck am I watching? Then David turns it off and isn't eating or sleeping, and this is where the movie loses me, because I think I'm supposed to care for David, but I'm kind of not, which is becoming a problem. And Juliet and Alex are despicable people anyway, so it's hard to connect with them. Even though I like them, it's just hard to connect with them. They almost get robbed by 2 men, and David kills both robbers, and the movie begins to really die down for me as far as my opinion is concerned. David is, on the other hand, drills a hole on the ceiling, and Alex gets terrified and gets a visit by Detective Inspector McCall, played by Ken Stott, who I'm reviewing in this trilogy. And David gets questioned, and I'm thinking they're fucked now. Alex tries to find the money in the attic, and Alex calms down to not only run into David, but David drills a little hole in Alex's head, and that felt like David looking through the holes he drills to spy on Juliet and Alex, which did feel Norman Bates, by the way. The cops find out not who, but they put it on the TV and the newspapers, and now I'm thinking they're so fucked. And they question Juliet and Alex, and they don't tell them anything, which is how preposterous to lie to a cop like that. This is part of the end of this this is a part of the ending which is very preposterous. David and Juliet almost leave, and Alex calls someone in the middle of the night, and they have a threatening conversation, and Alex and Juliet fight against David because David was planning on leaving with the money. David stabs Alex, and Juliet stabs David, then stabs Alex and takes the money, and this is not a satisfying ending. Here we go. It turns out they hid the money underneath the floor because, come on, you know they did it. And Juliet is the doctor, for Christ's sakes. Oh my god. Now it's time for the rating. I'll give this movie a 4.5 out of 10. The characters are despicable here, and when we get to the halfway mark, that's when the movie begins to lose me. But I do like Danny Boyle's style with the camera and musical choices, but at the end of the day, I don't like this film. I don't want to watch it again, that kind of a thing. But I don't regret seeing it only this time. I might not ever watch it again, I must say. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me, and next week I will be back with A Life Less Ordinary. And until next time, and action.